Hello, Namaskar and a very good evening to all the viewers watching our session out there. This is Simran Singh. You are watching this particular session on PMeVIDYA channel number 6, 9 and 12. And we have different mediums through which you can connect with us, and one of them is our YouTube channel, as you all know. It is ncertofficial. So once again, a very warm welcome to all our viewers in this special live streaming on our session, that is school leadership and development. And we come up with certain different and interesting topics for all our school leaders, for all our viewers, to enhance your understanding, also to enrich your classroom experiences at the same time. And today we are going to discuss about leaders who model, like how leaders could act as role models for the school environment, for the students watching our sessions out there. And providing us more guidance in the session, we are also joined by two panelists. So allow me to introduce them with all our viewers. In the conversation here in studio, we have with us Dr. Charu Malik. Namaskar, ma'am. A very warm welcome in the session. She is currently serving as Assistant Professor at NCSL, that is National Center for School Leadership, NEPA. Then we also have with us Ms. Shreya Tiwari ji. Namaskar, ma'am.
Namaste.
आपका भी बहुत-बहुत स्वागत है इस सत्र में.
Thank you.
She is serving as National Program Officer in Digital Pedagogy from UNESCO MGIP. Besides, she has an experience of 12 years in the field of school leadership. She did the prestigious Gandhi Fellowship Program in rural parts of India, where she worked with school principals in turning around their schools. She has also pursued her higher education, that is MPhil and PhD, with her research area being school leadership from NEPA, and moreover, she has also previously served as Assistant Professor in NCSL NEPA. Ma'am, we welcome you in the session with open arms.
Thank you so much, Simran.
So all the viewers watching this session, if you have any queries, anything you would like to share with us regarding the context, so feel free to write down to us in the comment section of NCRT Official. Besides, here is a contact number that is flashing on your screens. So feel free to give us a call at 8800440559, and specific mail ID is also flashing on your screens, one of them being dth.class12@ciet.nic.in. So let's commence our conversation on leaders who model. So in the first place, Charu ma'am, I would request you to apprise our viewers more about today's session.
Yes, so today we are going to talk about leaders who model, or rather role model. And the intention for today's session is to have an interaction in a way that we are able to decode what role model means and what modeling behaviors and actions mean in the context of school leadership. So carrying this conversation forward, I would like to ask Shreya, this very important question, because most of the school leaders are quite perplexed. What is the difference between a school head and a school leader? So since one is a designated position and one is an aspiring position, which is beyond designation.
Right.
So this is one of the most fundamental questions that school heads often face. So how, if I am a school head or head of a school, then how must I become a school leader, and what is the difference?
That's a good question, Charu. Thank you for asking that. I think in some parts of our country, we have headmasters also serving as elementary school principals. We have school leaders, we have school principals, we have different positions, right? We have a position of also a principal of a secondary school. We have a lot of acting principals, so
correct.
Teachers, senior teachers who are filling in the shoes of the leadership in the school. Now, what does it really mean? Like you said, one is clearly a position when we refer to. So what comes to our mind when we say a school principal? Typically, I guess a lot of physical attributes, like someone who's sitting in an office, sitting on a high chair, and maybe has authority.
Yes.
I think it's time now that the world, the literature in the world, and a lot of great leaders are now breaking that gap, breaking these boundaries. There is a very conscious shift in the vocabulary that's coming about, where we are consciously using the term leaders. It does not just mean that a leader is a person who will always be on the top of the hierarchy.
Absolutely.
Even if you're within the system, like ideas of teacher leadership or even system leadership. So it's taking several forms and several shapes, but I think what's essentially important is this very central difference between just a person who is able to manage work, get things done, which is a more traditional way of looking at it, moving away from leading not just work but leading people, leading human beings.
Absolutely.
Right? Because on a daily basis, the role of a school principal is to work with so many stakeholders, and we'll just talk about the number of stakeholders there are, right, in the life of a school leader. The second very critical thing is, this whole notion of what position is. So is leader a school leader a person who has a position and that's why needs to be respected? Or everyone should listen to this person because there's a position? Or is there something beyond that position which is around perhaps influence,
right,
inspiration? Today we're going to talk about that, and therefore this whole idea of what modeling means. When we break these traditional notions of hierarchy, we break this traditional notion of authority, we break the traditional notion of because I'm someone's senior, that's why you should listen to me, or because I'm older in age, you should listen to me. I think we're going to break away those notions hopefully today and talk about this very central core of what entails the shift of vocabulary from being a school principal to being a leader in your space.
Right, and I think 2-3 very important things that you've just highlighted. One is the fact that leadership is a concept that is beyond position, beyond the hierarchical space, and of course it is a distributed concept also. So we don't have just the people who are in position being leaders, but people who are not in position are also leaders. And now you just highlighted teacher leadership, and we have student leaders also.
Absolutely.
So student leaders, the traditional notion of student leadership was a student, in the college or the university being part of the political structure in the university. But a class 4th student can also be a leader.
Absolutely.
A leader of his own journey of learning. And taking leadership of how I learn and how I understand the world. So even a young student can also be a leader.
In fact, as you're saying it, and if we introduce another little difficult idea of democracy, right, if we bring that in, and then we try to understand a classroom space, it just creates a whole new different world, right? Now, how does democracy come into a space of classroom, one might ask? And therefore, what is the role of a student? And then what forms does leadership really take, be it for the teacher, be it the principal or the child herself? So you rightly said, I think the agency of a person to be able to influence others, and that's something we're going to talk about very quickly, influencing and what it really means, right? So how a person takes the agency and influence people around them. Be it students, be it teachers, be it the parent community, the world is too short when we start influencing them.
Right, and I think this whole idea of agency has been highlighted in literature across social sciences, and when we talk of modeling, this is so central for any person who wants to transform herself or himself as a change agent. And we need change agents, across all ages and across all hierarchies. So let's take this forward.
Great. Let's take a look at, like your curriculum, the National Center for School Leadership's curriculum wonderfully identifies several stakeholders in the life of a school leader, I may say. So when we say stakeholder, what does it typically mean? Stakeholders are the people that we are dealing with, people we are managing in a way on almost a daily basis. So if you see a school leader touches the lives of one's own self, the teacher community, the student community, the parents of the community in which the school is situated, system level officials, other colleagues which are peer principals in the network, and the society at large. So there is a lot of people who are watching the person in the center. Now that person in the center has two options. Option one is to continue to use the role, which is to lead the school and to run it the way it's running, or has an option to lead the school in a way in which it has not been functioning, breaking bars and breaking barriers and influencing all the stakeholders around you to be able to take forward an agenda that you believe in. That agenda could be as simple as making my school more inclusive. That agenda could be as simple as bringing a parent community to have a greater voice in my school. and how do you lead all the other stakeholders around you in that agenda to cause that change, right? So just to identify the number of people that a school leader manages, and I must tell you, Dr. Charu, this is not a very easy job, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've experienced that in your own workshops.
Yes.
Why don't you share about, what your workshops have taught you in terms of the stakeholders?
Right. I think this stakeholder management is, of course, a very critical, job profile of a school leader or for any leader who is working in the administrative structure. And to be able to lead requires a whole set of behaviors and actions, which you're going to talk about in detail. And I think one of the most challenging roles of a school leader has been to manage the expectations from these stakeholders. So that is something which has really come up from the field. And most of these expectations are conflicting to each other, So the parents would want, that the school focuses more on the academic part, why are the children not scoring high, for instance, But the school leader might say, for me and for us as a school leadership team, the vision of developing children as holistic personalities is more important than scoring high. Right. So as many stakeholders as you have around your job profile, as many expectations you have, and they might just conflict with each other, and that happens in our personal and professional lives for every adult. So how to manage the stakeholders and how to manage the conflicting expectations from your role as a leader, that becomes something where a person needs to intervene and think through, reflect, envision, and then plan out how to deal with it. And I think just taking forward from what you have said, leadership is, of course, going beyond managing people. And as the literature almost says, that leadership is about empowering people. So it is more than just managing. You have to empower each and every individual that comes in contact with you. So that is a very major challenging.
And that can be so difficult as well,
that
right? Because essentially, if you see in our system, right, I mean, the idea of school leadership is still pretty new.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember when in 2012, this whole center was established by the ministry because there was a need felt for school leadership. But essentially, the idea of school leadership is a newer idea.
Right.
People are still trying to figure out what does it really mean.
Right.
There are some states which have, the aptitude tests so that, a person can qualify as a school principal.
You have that in Gujarat.
You have that in Gujarat, exactly. Gujarat is a classic example for that, for the HTAT. But, not every state still has that system. And it doesn't really mean that that system is the best, right? Because you're still assessing knowledge.
Right.
It's essentially a paper pencil test. Now, across the country, when we look at a trend, we know that promotions happen on seniority.
Right.
Just because I am a teacher teaching history for the last 25 years of my life, overnight, you would ask me to become a school principal. Now, I am at a fix. I don't know what to do. Right. So, what do I rely on? As a principal, I am about 50 years typically, right? And
sometimes 55
or more, right? Exactly. What do you do then? So, you will of course try to perform basis what you have learnt in the past. So, you will be replicating what's happened in the past. The whole system of training a school leader which equips them from a person overnight managing a class of 35 or 50 children is suddenly expected to lead a school with 200 children and a staff of 10.
And in secondary schools, you might have to lead 5,000 students and
much more.
Of a staff of approximately 40 to 50 teachers.
Absolutely, and a budget, right? Now suddenly a person because I've learned history or I am a chemistry teacher, I may not really know how to lead, right?
Yeah.
So this whole system that we have, which we are thanks to NCSL now with the program frameworks in place and the curriculum in place, the need has been felt. But I just wanted to also bring our attention to the fact that, our principals who are watching us today, our school leaders as we would like to call them, irrespective of the position, whether you're an acting principal or a vice principal or a secondary or an elementary or a primary school principal, it doesn't matter because you have taken up that job of managing so many stakeholders and do this overnight shift of change in role, which is not an easy thing. And that's what we want to talk about today. And we're hoping that through this chat that we have, there can be a better toolkit available for you to pick up and start using. Just a new lens, जिसको हम बोलते हैं हिंदी में एक नया नजरिया शायद, जो आपको आने वाले समय में हेल्प करेगा, जिससे आप शायद अपने काम को बेहतर तरीके से, अपने रोल को बेहतर तरीके से समझ पाएंगे, इंटरनलाइज कर पाएंगे और शायद बेटर परफॉर्म कर पाएंगे. ये आशा के साथ वी वांट टू आल्सो नाउ रेज अ वेरी सेंट्रल क्वेश्चन. How does one learn? What has been your experience, Charu? I'm sure बच्चों में और adults में तो बहुत अंतर है. सीखने की प्रक्रिया अलग है दोनों की. Children learn differently than adults. What are some andragogy principles that you want to tell us? And your experience. I know the National Center for School Leadership curriculum and the handbooks are dipped very deeply into andragogy principles.
Right.
Why don't you share something about that?
Right. I think most of our school leaders are aware of the fact that the entire school leadership development program is based on practitioner-centric principles, which are very, very important for adults. See, there is like you said very rightly, there's a fundamental difference on how adults learn and how children learn. And when we look at how adults learn, basically they learn more through their on-the-job training and the daily routine of ups and downs. So that becomes the laboratory of experience that the adults learn through. तो जैसे अभी आपने बताया कि जब बच्चे पढ़ते हैं तो उनके लिए टेक्स्ट बुक एक इम्पॉर्टेंट टूल हो सकता है, बट फॉर अडल्ट्स the experience and professional practice becomes the real basis of learning and applying their learning right just on the ground. So that is one critical feature of adult practitioners and andragogy. Then there are 2-3 other ways in which adults would learn much better. One is of course peer learning, like both of us are sitting and learning through each other. So how do we learn along with the others, our age? So peer learning, collaboration between adult learners, so that becomes another important method through which adult practitioners learn.
Right.
And of course not to say that we are all lifelong learners, be it any age. So self-reading is something which is like a companion for our entire childhood and adolescence and the entire adult life. So self-reading is something that would not lose, would not get lost somewhere.
Absolutely.
So this is something that that will continue. And of course, we learn from feedback from others.
Great. So interestingly, Charu, the things you've said, having my own experience, my professional practice,
yes,
my peer learning, what I observe from others, collaboration with others, self-reading, taking a certificate course like MOOC or like this that's happening, right?
Right.
Through the NCRT channels, or just receiving feedback. They're all very centered on the self, on me, on what I learn and how I perform. Whereas we just saw in the stakeholder diagram that actually the role of a principal is actually to go beyond. So constantly, if you see, the diagram also constantly went out and then came in, went out and came in. So it's teachers with the leader, and it's children, students with the leader, government officials who are your seniors with the leader, parent community with the leader. There is a constant sense of the central person in question. And today, this is very important to also talk about the shift in another narrative. As we have moved from the shift of principalship to leadership, the second big shift that the world is making is towards, yes, I learn like this, but that's me and the way I learn, right? And that's a very self-centered activity because it's gathered around what I do for me. Whereas today, when we are talking about leadership, there is a shift we need to make from I to the other.
Right.
Because all your stakeholders are others, right? And because you are the one who is sitting in the center, managing and leading all these relationships around you, it's important to bring in a new term of influence.
True.
Right? So it's not just about how I learn, but it's also about how, sorry, we don't need, okay.
Yeah.
It's about how I influence the people around me, right? How am I influencing the teacher? So I may learn a certain things by doing a certificate program, by doing a MOOC, or by reading a book, or by observing someone's practice, but the way I influence my teachers, the way I influence my learners, the way I influence parent community is a whole new set of skill. And that's where this whole idea of role modeling a behavior comes into picture, right?
Right. And here, just let me just intervene to make a very, very small point, and this is a brilliant idea that you have proposed, that this whole, this bridge between self and the other is what you're calling the influence, and how I influence the other, and that becomes again the central point in leadership,
right.
Which goes beyond managing. And we why does it go beyond managing? Because influence is one of the ways, most potential ways to empower the other. And
exactly, because at no point do I have really any control over what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I might like to believe it because I am a senior, so you should listen to me, but really, if we really know, and I'm sure all our teachers watching us today know this, you essentially don't have power over anybody else.
Yes.
I mean, I can't just say that, just because I'm saying something, you should go and do something. You will not go and pursue a PhD because I'm saying it. You will do a PhD because until and unless you see value in doing it, right?
True.
Similarly, imagine, just like, the example we took, we want parent voices to be more active in a school. If a principal wants that, will it just happen because the principal directs everyone? Okay, parents, I want to hear your voice. Talk to me now. Will it work?
No, never.
Of course not. Parents will be like, oh, go away, right? If they are kinder to you, they will probably not say go away, but say that silently to you. You want children to perform. Will the children perform on the stage in an assembly because they're scared of you? They may sing a few lines, but will they be really happy? Is that real learning? That's not right, and that's the whole shift. Will your teacher listen to you who's perhaps older than you? When I was working in my, an example just to share this, right? I was, 22, and I was working with principals who were double my age, triple my grandfather's age.
Right.
And I was there, trying to say, okay, I want to help you change your school. The first thing they said was, get out. Who are you? You are like my daughter's age. What will you tell me? In that moment, I realized that no matter how much I know here, I may have the best degree, or anybody may do several certificate programs. You may know a lot of knowledge you might have, but it doesn't mean that you will be able to influence the other person. Influence means going beyond just knowledge.
Yes.
It means when a school principal says, for example, the school needs to start at 8 a.m. and I want my teachers to be there at 7:55 a.m. When a principal says that and walks in the next day at 10 a.m., what do you think will happen?
Nobody will listen. And
no one.
Nobody will listen.
Even if teachers reach or students reach the behavior that's expected of a principal to lead by demonstration, or the opportunity that the principal has to influence the teachers, in other words, is lost. Because till I actually model a behavior, my ability to influence anybody will be really, really low. And that's where the whole world is shifting towards it. Let me tell you another example, okay? Imagine you're sitting in a workshop, which you all must have been, right? Now, before COVID or even now after COVID, in a workshop, you hear a lot of, some peers talking about great work that they're doing in their classrooms, right? I have taught children during COVID like this, and I have done this, and I have done that. Now, you, as a person who's listening to it, right, as a peer, what is your response? one option is, now imagine if your school is right next to that person's school and you really know if the person is talking the truth or not, right? You know that this person doesn't really do, it's just a talker. You know that, right? Will you have respect for this person? Will you be influenced to try the techniques this person is saying or no? My guess is not, right? Versus a person who in his school is trying so many things and is then talking. You will get to know when you're hearing that person. What is that difference? You know, that is what we say is modeling. And that's a very nuanced skill. It demands a principal to be true to herself. It demands the principal to know what I don't know, right?
Right.
So it demands you to become self-aware. And very importantly, identify what is your core. What's your core value that you want to exhibit? And there is no set of core values which are there everywhere in the world which are standard. You know, your core value, Charu, if you're leading a school, and my core value may be completely different.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's up to you in terms of what you want to model. And it can be as basic as being innovative, or it can be as basic as being on time. It can be, you know, I want my students to ask me questions. Now, I can tell my teachers, let your students ask questions. Or I can do it and demonstrate, right? So, let's identify our core values, right? And that's the homework that you will need to do, our dear principals and leaders in whichever space. It doesn't demand you to be a teacher or a principal or a headmistress or a primary teacher. It just demands you to self-reflect, identify, become aware of your own value, and start with one core value that you want to start modeling. Not from next year, but from tomorrow morning, right? And you will start identifying the difference that it will start making on those around you.
So it's just what you're talking about in terms of core values. So for instance, if I want to demonstrate the value of democracy, like we had talked about it earlier, which is such a beautiful value, and if we can practice that in the school premises and in the classrooms, that would of course require the leader to be democratic. When the leader is working with the teachers, when the leader is working with the community, the parents, and of course the students of any age. So I think that becomes really, really important. Or if I want to uphold the value of justice, or if I want to uphold the value of equity, you know, these are very difficult, abstract concepts that can be practiced.
Absolutely.
But if one does that,
you can also start with something very simple.
Very simple, absolutely. Yeah. So you can always decode these abstract concepts, you know, and just take the spirit of that concept and design your classroom practices, your schooling practices around that decoded value.
Exactly.
Because you uphold them so dearly.
Absolutely.
And they're so valuable.
And for that, you need to do a lot of inner work.
Yes.
You need to do a lot of asking yourself.
Yes.
Before that means, so just a check, right, for you. So when next time you think a teacher is not performing or not doing XYZ and you want to give that feedback, take a pause. Check in with yourself. Hey, before I say it, am I doing it? That's all it takes. That's all it takes. You will have the answer.
That is so true.
And I also want to bring, you know, a lot of principals in the past have also asked me in our workshops that, you know, I am a history teacher or I am a physics teacher, but how do I lead a person who teaches English or Sanskrit?
Or mathematics.
Or mathematics.
Yeah.
You know, I may not know subject knowledge, but you see, that's the whole beauty of influencing. You do not need, and a leader is not supposed to be an all-rounder subject expert, because it's not possible. It's not humanly possible, right? But what you can lead is a value. For example, if a teacher who is a chemistry teacher wants to make a class, or as a school you decide we want to make a class where questioning children questioning us, questioning in the classroom is going to be encouraged. Okay, what do you do then? It then doesn't matter whether it's a chemistry or it's a physics, right? Or a maths class. The ability to ask questions has to be open for that teacher to ask you. Are your teachers comfortable asking you questions? Sometimes it may feel uncomfortable because it's challenging the notion of authority. But remember, that's why we are saying the notions have to shift. So there are schools which I would say are a beautiful school in today's time would be where you can't even identify a school principal from the rest of the teachers.
There's so many schools
because it's so fluid.
It's a very fluid kind of a space.
Absolutely.
You know, the schools that are functioning at such capacity, you know, and remember we have this in the literature, there's a spiderless organization.
Absolutely.
So a spiderless organization is one where you just cannot identify who the leader is. A student can be a leader, a teacher can be a leader, a parent can be a leader.
Model.
And we also have one of the examples in Chhattisgarh. I remember one of the Professor Sunita ma'am had gone to that school, and she was recounting her experience that a member of the school management committee was a rickshaw puller, and was extremely active, more active than the other members who were literate or educated. So it is about your passion. It is about your commitment to the schooling process that makes you a leader.
Absolutely.
Not really.
And in this case, perhaps the school leader of that school opening up the boundaries to let that person also be vocal.
Yes.
Isn't it? That's the beauty.
That's
it's the beauty of the rickshaw puller as well, despite being not educated, etc. But the ability of that person to come in comfortably into the school and say something, have a point of view on my child's education, shows that the leader of the school has opened the doors for a person like that, isn't it? Without having the judgments of who's educated, not educated, etc., etc.
Right, true. So I think these three aspects that you have identified for role modeling, and you say that it's a very deep inner work that would be engaging with your own self, questioning yourself, and remodifying your behaviors and actions to exhibit influence and to be able to influence the others in this whole change process.
Absolutely.
So that is self-awareness, reflection, and core values. I think every school leader needs to identify the core values that he or she is practicing
or wants to practice,
become more self-aware and engage in reflection every single day, because that is how you grow. If we go ahead with this and we kind of wind this up before we take one or two questions.
Sure.
How is modeling significant for professional development? So there's a lot of talk in the National Education Policy 2020 when talking about the continuous professional development possibilities for school leaders and teacher leaders. And traditionally, like we have countered the traditional notions of leadership and principalship and all of that. So traditionally the way professional development was viewed was more about training, but PD now has a much wider connotation. And of course, this is part of becoming professionally developed. Once you start modeling new behaviors and actions. And how do you model them? You have given a very clear roadmap for each school leader, that is self-awareness, reflection, and identifying the core values and aspiring for new core values. So these three are the roadmap for each school leader.
I like how you've connected this to professional development, because you're almost saying that your professional development is in your hands.
Yes,
it's almost
it's not about doing a PhD degree.
Right.
It's about how you develop yourself and how you conduct yourself.
Exactly.
That is what.
It's interesting how it always comes back to the self. What
really
I do for me and how I behave and do my inner work so that I can change the world around me.
Absolutely, and that is really at the heart and core of becoming a change agent, and I think each one of us is a change agent.
Absolutely.
Yes, if there is any one single question before we wind up.
So we have a lot of questions, but due to paucity of time, I think we'll be able to take only one question from one of our viewers. So one of our viewers in the comment section has asked us, how can schools provide opportunities to school students to act as leaders in front of their other classmates? Like, are there any kind of activities that they could practice in the classroom scenario?
Several. So many that I think there is positive time for that. See, it all depends on what you mean when you say is there a possibility for students to become school leaders? You need to first of all break this whole notion. This notion that there can be some who are leaders and some who are not. I think that's the whole notion you have to start breaking. Sorry sir or ma'am who has asked this question, this is just a response to your question that it's just an opportunity for me, and that's why I'm saying this, that we need to start looking at each child. You know, there's enough neuroscience literature that tells us that each child learns differently. As a teacher, when you start identifying each child and identifying the strengths and the areas of growth for each child, you will identify a leadership trait within each.
Absolutely.
And if you think you want to design spaces where children can flourish, I would say try giving them an exercise to do collectively. You know, as adults, we may not be great at collaboration, but children are.
Absolutely.
Try giving them a project. Try giving them a whole new pedagogical approach where, you know, you're using problem solving as a technique and allowing the children to work together and find solutions. It can be as simple as धान के खेत में कितना पानी चाहिए और कहाँ पे उसका बैरियर डालना है. Let children go and explore this and try to find 5 solutions in the way those can be made, the barriers can be made, जिससे पानी रुक जाए. ये एक example है, but ऐसे बहुत सारे example हो सकते हैं. You know, so therefore essentially I'm saying there are projects that you can start taking up. Design projects where children's capabilities, children's strengths are brought in. Design groups in a way where the more capable in certain aspects are combined with the lesser capable. Lesser capable will not always be lesser capable in everything. They will be more capable in some. So identify those as well, so that there is a real beautiful collaboration possibility. And most importantly, a very simple trick, if I may just suggest. I have worked with children and this is something that I have always resorted to. When you go into the class next time, try to ask children what is it that 3 things they want to agree on collectively as a class to do in that 1 hour or half an hour. Ask them to design that class.
Right.
They know that you're a maths teacher or a physics teacher. They know that. Ask them. And you will see that 3 things they will be able to identify just by talking amongst themselves, collaborating. There will be some, conflict. Someone wants some, someone wants some. Allow the process and give a time and say 10 minutes is all you have to agree on this, or 5 minutes is all you have to agree on this. And you will find 1, 2, 3. Try doing this for at least a month and you will see the class moving from here to there in terms of collaboration and student agency.
Yes, right.
Simple idea for leadership.
This is extraordinary what you have, the message that you have sent, Shreya, where we talk about child's autonomy. And autonomy is really at the heart of becoming a leader. So the more autonomy you give the children, of course in a facilitated environment, the more leadership capabilities they build. And I think this also gives us a new topic to talk about next time, where we talk about children as leaders and autonomous learners.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I do believe the session has turned out really helpful and productive for all our viewers, because there are beautiful comments pouring in the comment section. If I could just go through them.
Yes,
like viewers, Junaid Ahmed Khan says that it's very true what you have mentioned, especially in the school circumstances. And also Sonia Chandlaji says that the sessions are amazing. They are treasure trove for all the school leadership savvy people. And Indu Balaji says it's a wonderful session. Then we have a lot of viewers saying the session is really interesting. We want more of these sessions with more time limits. All right, we'll take a note of that. So I would like to extend a word of thanks to both the panelists who have been a part of this conversation. Thank you, Charu ma'am.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Shreya ma'am, for guiding our path in the conversation. Thank you to all the viewers who have connected with NCERT for this particular session of school leadership and development. So don't go anywhere. You can watch a lot of sessions on our YouTube channel, that is NCERT Official, either on our website, that is www.ciet.nic.in. So it's time for me to wrap up this particular session, but stay connected to NCERT and keep watching PMeVIDYA channels. Namaskar.